Marhaba everyone, and welcome to this new video by 360arabic.com. Today we will be looking at the strokes that you usually use and reuse to produce Arabic letters. These are meant to be companion videos to our Letters and Sounds of Arabic ebook. You can download this ebook for free from the description below, or you can go to 360arabic.com. Let's look at those common strokes and discuss one important aspect of writing Arabic letters. Let's go. So these are the recurrent shapes that we use and reuse to produce Arabic language letters. Let's look at these closely. By now, you should be able to identify some letters in the Arabic language alphabet, and you should be building your proficiency in recognizing them and then pronouncing them appropriately. Let's look at this set. These are letters that recycle more or less the same shape. The same thing for this set, for this set. Set, another set, another set, another set, another set. And these, although they might recycle aspects of some other letters, but we're going to just leave them stand alone for now. And let's move to these letters set by set. Now, one thing to remember is that as you are learning the alphabet, you might find yourself drawing shapes that remind you of the time where you were learning how to write for the first time. Perhaps your mind is telling you that this is all new, that I'm learning again, and therefore I've seen examples of students, of learners who have a hard time keeping a straight line. This is something that you have to be mindful of. You may not experience it, but if you do, just remember that you're not trying to do something totally new, that some of the strokes you've been using for years are going to be at play again. Now, here are the sets that we will be looking at. One very important thing that I want you to pay attention to as we are moving forward is letter proportions. It's extremely important to pay attention to that, and here is why. See, for example, this letter, the Alif. The Alif in this canvas or on this board, it's going to be anywhere between 2 and 3 lengths. So length 1, 2, and 3. Somewhere in between, let's say 2 plus the little symbol on top. The other letters, like this set right here, most of them would fall within this particular length right here. And so keeping the proportions in mind as you write Arabic letters is going to be extremely important. More than once, I've seen students write things like this, like Alif is written correctly, but because they haven't been paying attention to proportions, or they were not told to pay attention to proportions, you see a ba this big, you see another Alif this big, you see a ta this big. And that is something that you would typically be able to learn very quickly just by observation. Sometimes you'll learn it without even knowing that you've learned it. In a sense, acquire it. But knowing it first and bringing it to your attention is something that is very important at this point. Now let's look at these letters, or letter sets one by one. So Alif, it's just a stroke, straight stroke. Now, one important thing to keep in mind is that people will write Arabic differently. There are tons of fonts that present the Arabic letters differently. And so we have to keep in mind the general shapes of the letter, but we shouldn't worry too much about precision as we write these letters. Let me show you. The Alif, for example, is a stroke. We said about 2 to 3 with the Hamza on top. If you go like this, for example, or this, or this, or this, it still will be read as an Alif. So you should not try to be millimeter precise when writing these letters, and you don't have to because they're recognizable. Letters in Arabic are a little bit distinguishable from one another, and therefore you don't have to worry about the minutiae of these letters. And you will see that some people would write artistically and add a curve to their Alif, which is not typically something you want to do as a beginner. But again, that's something that would not hamper your ability to read Alif. This is an Alif, this is an Alif. So don't let anyone tell you that there is one way to write the Alif. There are better ways than others, certainly, but you have to just try to get the basic shape right. The set of ba, we stick to the length, as we said. So this is one length. We stick to the length and we create this shape. Again, it doesn't matter if it looks like this or this. Generally speaking, anything with a dot underneath is going to be read as a ba, 2 dots as a ta, 3 dots as a tha. The noon here, you'll see, is a little bit curvy, and that's all right. That's something that you definitely have to try to do. It's a little bit shorter and curvier with 1 dot on top. But if you happen to put a dot on top of a shape like that, everybody will be reading it as a noon. N. And so, as long as you keep the basic shape within one length, then you should be fine. Now, you don't have to stick to a specific length. That's why I use one length. I don't say 1 centimeter or 1 millimeter or 1 inch. The reason is that the bigger the Alif is, the bigger the ba will be, but the ba will always be 2 to 3 times smaller. So if you have this huge billboard with an Alif that's 2-story or 3-story long, then the ba will have to be about 1 story long. I think you get the point. And the next set, ja, ha, and kha, are equally written, or the significant portion of the letter. And this is a concept we will be seeing as we move on. There are portions of our letters without which we cannot identify the letter. And there are portions that are like cosmetic that we put at the end of our letters that change as we connect the letter. So these are strokes or trailing ends that we definitely have to use, but they do not necessarily identify the letter per se. So they're not part of the critical portion of the letter. So we stick to the same one length and we'll write our ha, kha, ja. Okay? So without a dot, that's a ha, kha. With a dot, that's a ja. When it's the end of the letter, end of the word, or we're writing the letter independently, then we just close with this trailing end. This is typically too big, so we have to stick to a little bit like 1 length to 1 length and a half, okay? So, something like this. You can do this. I've seen people do this. So again, don't let these details distract you from the fact that the basic shape is this. It can be this, it can be this. And so variation is artistic, is something that you will develop as you move on. Moving on, still within that length, one length, we have ra and za. Now you can be approximate about this. You don't have to be absolutely exact. But as long as you write a shape that looks like this, it's unmistakable. It's a ra or a za. Za, 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 za. Ra, 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 ra. Finally, keeping in the same one length, we write 3 teeth that are typical of what you see in s or sh. Sh has 3 dots. S has nothing. And when you close, you go with a nice trailing end that goes down between 1 and 2 lengths. Okay? Again, this is an artistic choice, and you will be developing your own handwriting as we move on. So, sa, sha, sha, sa. Again, you will see subtle differences between one way of writing sa and sha and the other. You will notice those differences between people and in between the font or typefaces that you use, and that is absolutely normal. Now, moving on, we have new sets of shapes. Again, staying faithful to that one length, we write sa, ba, ta, and the using this particular whale-like shape. And then you just do the trailing end without a dot, that's a sa, with a dot, that's a da, with a straight line, that's a ta, ta, with a straight line and a dot, that's a va, that's a va. Now, so this is a sa, with a dot, that's a da, with a straight line, that's a ta, with a straight line and a dot, that's a va. It remains that in this particular typeface, we have trailing ends decorative with standalone sa and da, but with ta and the, you see they kind of stay in line, and this is fine. This is something that you can definitely do with the and ta. But if you happen to do this, unmistakably, it will be read as a ta. So don't worry too much about that detail. Now, moving on to the next set, we have r and a. Again, staying within that one length, we write this shape that looks like, you know, the little shape that we had on top of the Alif, but this one is much bigger and much more pronounced. And if this is the end of a word, or if it's a standalone letter, we go with the curve. Okay? This is a with one dot, it's a ra. Again. A, ra, a, ra, a, ra. This set right here is fa and qa. And this is, again, we stay within that one length, and we do a little circle and we stick to the line. It's like we join the line, we intercept the line, the baseline. One dot is fa, a circle, intercept, fa, circle, intercept, fa. If you have two dots on top of these, they will certainly be read as qa. In this typeface, for example, qa is a little bit rounder and smaller, which is fine, but it by no means restricts you to that. You can write qa and fa in the same way. This is the wow letter, producing w sound. Again, we stick to the one length, and we draw a circle, and we go down one length. This is the kaf. Kaf is a little bit particular. We will definitely look at kaf closely as we discuss how letters connect to one another in Arabic. But just assume, for the purposes of this video, that these two symbols right here both represent the letter ka, kaf. So here, go up one length, kaf. So it's like two lengths. It's almost like you write a ha and you cross it. And the other one is just like the Alif with the little hamza. Little like Alif, circle, hamza. Alif, circle, hamza. And notice that we can go a little bit below that line. Okay? Now, the last set is pretty simple and straightforward. This is da, 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 the. Now you'll notice that they are written a little bit differently from one another, but that's a detail. Again, you will be developing your own style of writing these words and these letters. For the purposes of this video, let's also assume that these two symbols both represent the sound h for the letter ha. Ha is written in two different ways. There is this little circle right here that looks like a fig, and ha, that's a circle that's crossed. A circle that's crossed. Sometimes you can do like a circle inside the circle. Finally, we have the ya. That's a shape that looks like a swan. It goes a little bit below in a standalone configuration. In this video, I hope you have seen that a lot of the Arabic letters use strokes that are repeated or that are recurrent. And so you shouldn't have a hard time learning these letters and applying these basic strokes to produce all these beautiful letters. Now, please understand that at this point, we don't expect you to know all the letters by heart, that you would have perfectly identified every single iteration of the letter, especially the ones that have two iterations like ka or ha. But the expectation that by now you're really working on identifying the sounds based on the letters of the Arabic language. So keep working on that part, and we'll see you in the next videos for more content. Now feel free to share these videos with your colleagues and friends and classmates. And don't forget to go to 360arabic.com to download the free ebook or use the link in the description below. I apologize, this video was a little bit longer than I anticipated, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in the next videos. Thank you very much, and ma'as salam.